The cabin was alive with the low murmur of conversation and the gentle thud of luggage being stowed, a familiar symphony of boarding time. In first class, the scent of leather seats mingled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee, and the passengers settled in with practiced ease. A flight attendant moved down the aisle with measured authority, her expression unreadable. She halted beside a boy seated quietly near the window. Without even offering a greeting, she spoke. "You can't sit. Here, this seat isn't yours." The boy, no older than 12, clutched his ticket and looked up, confused but polite. "But it is my seat. Seat 3B, he replied. Her expression hardened slightly, her voice cool. "I don't believe so." Passengers nearby began to glance over, curious, but no one said anything. No one challenged her tone or her assumption. What none of them realized, not even the woman standing over him, was that this wasn't just another child who'd wandered into the wrong place, and by the time the wheels of this aircraft touched the ground, everything would look different. The mom. Boy kept his composure, though his shoulders were tense. The world outside the window looked soft and distant. This was supposed to be a special day, his first solo trip, a reward for his hard work in school. His father had promised him this, a gesture of pride and trust. He hadn't expected to feel like an outsider for claiming what he had earned. Another voice interrupted his thoughts. "Excuse me, young man." The same attendant loomed again, more insistent now. Her tone was sharp beneath a veil of civility. Her name tag shimmered in the soft overhead light. "Are you certain this is your assigned seat?" He nodded and handed her his ticket again. "Yes, ma'am. Seat 3B. She gave it a cursory glance, then frowned. "This is first class," she said slowly, as though explaining something obvious. "I know," he answered quietly. Her gaze narrowed. "Where are your parents?" His chest tightened. "I'm flying alone." Her sigh was loud, exaggerated. "That's highly unusual. There's probably been a mistake. This section is for first class only." The boy hesitated, trying to hold onto his dignity as he felt eyes on him. He wasn't loud. He wasn't disruptive. He had his seat, his proof. But the silence from the surrounding rows only made things harder. "There's been a mix-up. You'll need to move to economy," she said finally, gesturing behind her. He didn't argue. There was no room left for defiance. Slowly, he stood, slung his backpack over one shoulder, and stepped into the aisle. She didn't offer to help. Instead, she turned and led him down the narrow path between seats. As he passed by, the other passengers remained still, unmoved, unwilling to meet his gaze. He found a seat further back and lowered himself into it. The space was cramped. The air didn't feel the same. He took out his phone with trembling fingers and typed, "They made me move. I had my ticket." She didn't believe me. His father's reply came quickly. "Who made you move?" "The flight attendant. She said it was a mistake," the boy answered. There was a pause. Then, "What's the flight number? He sent it. Stay where you are." "I'll take care of it." Back at the front of the plane, the senior flight attendant, Miss Caldwell, returned to the galley, smoothing her blouse with a satisfied expression. Another issue handled. One less problem. One less inconvenience. Nicole, a newer attendant, set a tray of glasses onto the counter, her movements slower than usual. She had watched it all unfold, the quick dismissal, the refusal to check the system, the way the boy's voice had grown smaller with each exchange. "Was something wrong with his seat?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Miss Caldwell gave a short laugh. "Please, did you see him? Do you honestly think someone like that belongs up here?" Nicole felt the knot in her stomach tighten. She had seen plenty of people from all walks of life in first class, but the way Miss Caldwell said it made it clear this wasn't about tickets. "You didn't even check," Nicole said quietly. "I didn't need to," came the reply. "You learned to tell." Nicole said nothing more, retreating into silence. She had learned early in her training that pushing too hard would only cause trouble. Miss Caldwell had been flying for over a decade and carried herself like she owned the sky. Then the intercom crackled. "Miss Caldwell, please report to the cockpit immediately." The change in energy was instant. Nicole glanced up. That wasn't routine. Flight attendants didn't get called to the cockpit unless something serious had come up. Miss Caldwell's confidence faltered slightly as she straightened her blazer and turned to go. Being called to the cockpit mid-flight wasn't standard procedure. Miss Caldwell felt it in her chest before she even reached the front. Something was off. She adjusted her blazer, composed herself, and stepped inside. The captain turned to her, his expression unreadable. But it was the screen behind him that made her breath catch. Displayed on the in-flight communications monitor was a man in a sleek office, city skyline glowing behind him. He sat with perfect stillness, hands folded, eyes fixed directly on her. The captain didn't wait for her to speak. "This is Mr. Coleman," he said, "owner of the airline." Miss Caldwell's posture faltered. Mr. Coleman's voice was quiet, even measured. "You removed my son from his assigned first-class seat." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "You didn't verify his ticket. You didn't consult the manifest. You made a decision based on nothing," the captain continued. Her knees weakened. Mr. Coleman didn't need to shout. The weight of his presence was enough. "You're going to walk back to economy," Mr. Coleman said. "And you are going to personally return my son to his rightful seat. When this plane lands, you will explain your actions to the executive board." The call disconnected. Silence. Miss Caldwell turned, the walk back down the aisle heavier with each step. She spotted him quickly, sitting by the window in economy, a picture of stillness. No tears, no tantrum, just quiet dignity. It made everything worse. She knelt beside him. Her voice, once sharp and commanding, was subdued now. "Sir," she said, "there's been a misunderstanding. I'd like to escort you back to first class." He looked at her, expression unreadable. "A misunderstanding?" he echoed. She nodded quickly. "Yes, there was an error in the seating. I showed you my ticket," he said calmly, "and you told me to move anyway." Passengers nearby shifted in their seats. Some had seen it happen. They knew he was telling the truth. Miss Caldwell swallowed hard. "I made a mistake," she admitted, her tone forced. "I'd like to correct it." The boy studied her, silent for just long enough to make her squirm. Then he reached for his phone. A moment later, her work tablet buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket and saw a message forwarded from airline headquarters. "Take your time. Make her understand what she did." Her heart pounded. She looked at him again, face flushed. "I'll go back," he said, "but I want to know why. Didn't you think I belonged there?" That question cut through the silence like a blade. The rows behind them, the very people who had watched him be dismissed, were suddenly paying close attention. She opened her mouth, but words failed. For the first time in her long career, she wasn't sure how to explain herself. The cabin quieted as the plane began its descent. Miss Caldwell sat in silence, her usual air of control slipping. She looked up toward first class and saw him there, flipping casually through a magazine. He looked at peace, but she couldn't stop the noise in her own head. It wasn't just that she had been wrong. It was that she had assumed. And now she had to live with that truth. The wheels touched down, and the intercom came to life. "Miss Caldwell, please remain on board." Her stomach dropped. She had known this was coming, but hearing it aloud made it final. One by one, passengers exited. Some glanced her way. Most didn't bother. Then the boy stood. He grabbed his bag and turned toward the aisle. For the first time, he looked her straight in the eyes. She wanted to speak, maybe to apologize, maybe to offer something to soften the moment. But he just gave a small nod. Not warm, not cold, just a gesture of acknowledgement. Then he walked off the plane. A beat later, the jet bridge door opened again. A uniformed security officer stepped inside. "Come with me." Her legs felt numb. The terminal lights felt too bright. Every step felt heavier than the one before. For years, she had walked these halls with pride. Now she was being escorted, not as staff, but as someone who had failed. This wasn't just about one seat, one boy, one flight. It was about what happens when people in power forget the weight their choices carry. One assumption, left unchecked, had told a child he didn't belong. But today that child reminded everyone he did.